kind of the fallacy that maybe kind of goes around here when we think about persecution and why the early church faced persecution is we tend to compare it to what we remember of the old Soviet Union, or maybe what we know about North Korea or China, and we tend to think of the Roman Empire as a secular state that oppressed people of faith. And we think that because that's what we know, and that's kind of the 20th century, and that's the story that we're familiar with. But the Roman Empire was not like that at all. In fact, in the first century, Rome celebrated many religions. They allowed many gods, and Rome took over, if you will, ruling the world from the Greeks. Not like the Greeks handed it to them, they took it from them. But Rome was brilliant in this way. They basically said to different cultures and different people groups, okay, look, you can continue. You can worship the way you worship. You can do what you do. You can have your way of life. You can even speak the Greek language since this is what you're used to. You can continue. Life is normal. One condition, you're going to pay us a lot of taxes. Sounds familiar, right? There's this arrangement here where it says that you can have everything you want as long as you give us all the money. And so Rome allowed other cultures and other religions to flourish and coexist. All they wanted was control and money. And so why is it that Christians all of a sudden are being picked on? Why these guys? Why not Jews? Why not other religions? Why not? I mean, look, there's all kinds of gods and Mars and Venus, and why Jesus? Because what Christians were claiming was not simply a new religion, but a new king. What Christians were proclaiming was not simply a new religion, but a new king. Did you know that many of the titles that we use for Jesus were first used for Caesar? When Julius Caesar died, they said, okay, this guy is God. He was a God. He was divine. And when his son Augustus had taken over, he didn't stop the rumor, because if your dad's God, what does that make you? The Son of God. That's right. And then because of the great peace that Rome introduced to the world, the Pax Romana, they said of Caesar, you are the Prince of Peace. You're the King of all kings because you've conquered. They would mint coins because they didn't have newspaper. This is pre the printing press, obviously. So their only way of spreading the news of a new Caesar or of Caesar's birth was to print it on a coin. And so they would print on coin the word in Greek, euangelion. What is that word? It's the word that we use for gospel. The gospel, the good news is that Caesar is Lord. That was what Rome said. The good news is that Caesar is Lord. And then on the coins it would say words like freedom, peace. As if to say, Caesar is Lord, and because Caesar is Lord, there is now freedom and peace and stuff for all. And that's why at a sporting event, when they would build a new arena or for a sporting event, Caesar would come and make an appearance. And when he would come, everyone would stand and say, Caesar, the Lord and Savior. Now imagine a band of Jewish followers who all of a sudden stand up one day and they say, Jesus is Lord and Savior. Jesus is the Son of God. Jesus is the Prince of Peace. Only Jesus brings freedom and peace and salvation. They might as well have added, and Caesar is not. The reason early Christians were persecuted was because they were politically subversive, not because they were just a religion that the state didn't like. It was a politically subversive thing. Now you think about this chapter and you say, well, Acts 4, there's some Roman guys in there. There's the captain of the temple guard and all that. But Luke goes through the trouble to name some people. He names the high priest, and he names others from the high priest family, and he names the Sadducees. Who are these people? Someday over coffee, I could tell you stories of how the Sadducees descended from the Maccabeans and what all that meant, the Maccabean revolt. But for us this morning, it's enough to say that the Sadducees were people who were in power over the temple. These were the guys who ran the temple. But they ran the temple thanks to an unholy alliance with the Roman state, the Roman Empire. They put God and empire in the same conversation, and they said, this is how we'll get things done. The Sadducees weren't looking for a Messiah. They believed Messiah was already ruling, but he was ruling through the power of state mixed with the power of God. Interesting, isn't it? And so the Sadducees ran the temple and kind of had charge of who gave sacrifices and how many and how much money they paid and all this stuff. Now, why do you think the Roman guards collaborated and helped them police the temple? Why did the Roman guards cooperate? Because the Roman guards got a cut of what was going on. This was an economic arrangement. This was an unholy alliance between God and empire for the sake of power and money. Same story, different century. We don't have a hard time imagining that because we can kind of picture that. Okay, first century, this is what's going on. And the Sadducees, in the name of God, are keeping control over things. And all of a sudden, in walk Peter and John. And the man who's been kept outside the temple since birth because the Sadducees said, you can't come into the temple, you're crippled. That must mean that God is judging you for a sin. And so these Sadducees had a power system all worked out. Can I tell you something? The rulers of this world gain power by saying who's in and who's out. The way of the world is the way of exclusion. The way of the world is the way of violence and force and suffering because it's a way of power. It's a way of saying, these are the ones who are in, these are the ones who are not, and we'll collude with whoever we need to collude with. We'll make alliances with whoever we need to make alliances with because this gives us the illusion of freedom and the illusion of peace and the illusion of stability. But as long as I'm getting money and you're getting money, we're all happy. And Peter and John walk in and they say, wait a minute, you can't keep this guy out of the temple just because he's crippled? And they speak healing to him and this guy comes in. Something is challenging their power.